Ja, de kör första inslaget. Vi har det där inslaget ska man gärna köra.
Also, in case anybody gets close with the camera, this is not a Nazi flag that I'm wearing. Contrary to disinformation and things that are occasionally said about Baltic immigrants, we are not fascists. We condemn the German occupation of Europe during World War II, as well as the Soviet occupation. I turn to you today and ask you to use your powers of perception, the powers of your mind. Attempt to imagine, if you will, all of us together. By all of us together, people of Finland and Karelia, the residents of the 3 Baltic states, the Polish people, the residents of the former regions of Romania, which were swallowed by the Soviet Union. Try to imagine in your mind's eye a vast chain of hands extending 600 kilometers through Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Think of oceans of flags and thousands of windows in the Baltic states where candles burn in memory of those who died premature deaths. Think of other cities in more than 40 countries, in Bonn, where hundreds of Latvians and their friends are gathered at this moment. Think of as many as 10,000 people in front of Toronto City Hall. Others are in a long winding procession of black cars in Washington, paying their respects to the dead and the oppressed. Think of all the energy being generated at this moment as submerged nations rise like Atlantis from beneath the sea. Think further east. My foreign correspondent friends tell me that demonstrations of solidarity are taking place in support of the victims of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact right now in Novosibirsk, in Yerevan, in Minsk, and many other corners of the sprawling Soviet Empire. Imagine, if you will, and I'm not making this up, that at this very moment, this very instant, a protest demonstration against the injustice of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact is taking place at the cradle of the Red Revolution in front of the Winter Palace in Leningrad. This is transpiring now. It's good to know that some people can maintain a sense of humor on the darkest of days. For you see, in London at this very moment, there's a crowd gathered, not much different from our crowd here, and they intend to present the Soviet ambassador to Great Britain with a large birthday cake bearing 50 candles. I was going to write a longer speech for today, but we exiles have never been quite trusted by the Western press as objective. However, now that the muzzles of Soviet terror have been removed from the mouths of our brothers and sisters, we all sing the same song, and that's gratifying. Here's the song they sing. I'm going to read to you a joint declaration issued in connection with this occasion with the infamous 23rd of August on the other side of the Baltic Sea. August 23rd, 1939, inflicted wounds on tens of nations and states. Some of these wounds are still bleeding. The Hitler-Stalin Pact unleashed an attack on Poland, which was destroyed and divided between the signatory states. The Hitler-Stalin Pact assigned the 3 Baltic states to the Soviet sphere of interest. 3 member states of the League of Nations were occupied by the Red Army. 3 independent states ceased to exist. The Soviet Union has done everything to remove the Republic of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania from the memory and map of Europe, from your libraries and textbooks, your sense of justice, your grief, and your minds. Many have let their consciences be lulled and put up with the impatience of the Hitler-Stalin Pact even during the last decades of millennium. This is why we, the 3 Baltic nations, turn to Europe and the world community today on the 60th anniversary of the deal in firm conviction that the democratic majority has retained its moral willpower, sense of justice, and willingness to share our assessment. The criminal Hitler-Stalin Pact has to be avoided. The essence of the Hitler-Stalin Pact and its secret protocols was imperialist division of the spheres of interest between 2 great powers. On the basis of this criminal deal, the Soviet Union unilaterally violated all the international treaties concluded with the Baltic republics, infringed on the historic right of the Baltic nations to self-determination, presenting ruthless ultimatums to the Baltic republics, occupied them with overwhelming military force and under conditions of military occupation and heavy political terror, carried out their violent annexation. The Hitler-Stalin pacts and their still enforced secret protocols were and are aimed at the destruction of sovereignty and independence of other states. Today, on the 50th anniversary of the deal, we remind all the nations of the world that under international law, treaties of this kind are criminal and unlawful from the very moment of signing. This knowledge, which the apologists of imperialism and red fascists have preferred to overlook, has supported and kept us alive despite the decades-long public terror and systematic genocide. We have remained faithful to democracy and human rights even while the colonial power over there, proceeding from its imperialist interests, set out to annihilate the Baltic nations physically by means of mass murders, deportations of thousands of people to Siberia, and purposeful denationalization of our towns, villages, factories, schools, and culture. The Hitler-Stalin Pact is still shaping Europe of today, our once common Europe. Yet we are convinced that the European community and democratic forces in the East will unite their voices in support of the demand of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania that the pact, together with its secret protocol, be denounced and declared null and void from the moment of signing. Only then will Europe divest itself of the last colonies of the Hitler-Stalin era, and only then the Baltic nations will get the opportunity to determine their own destiny on the basis of free self-determination. One may close one's eyes to the Baltic problem, but it will not cease to exist. For us, it is a problem of inalienable human rights. For you, it is a problem of double standards and security. But one way or another, we have to solve it together, proceeding from the principles of international law. A common European home can only be set up if all European nations are granted a free right to self-determination. The Baltic nations have sought ways for restoring their independent statehood in a way that would correspond to the interests of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, as well as the Soviet Union, and guarantee security in Northern Europe. In our view, stability on the shores of the Baltic must be built on a system of treaties such as was enforced before the deal of 1939 and which stems from the peace treaties concluded between the Soviet Union and the Baltic states in 1920. We have searched for a solution and we have called our solution the Baltic Way. The Baltic Way is a parliamentary way for the peaceful restoration of statehood. The Baltic Way does not represent a threat to anyone. The Baltic Way will guarantee social security, civil rights, and economic progress to all the people in the Baltic republics, regardless of their nationality. The Baltic Way is a way to democracy. The Baltic Way is the only way to freedom, brotherhood, and equality on the shores of our common Baltic Sea. Every village, town, and state has risen again from the ashes of the Second World War, except for the 3 Baltic states, former members of the League of Nations. Have you not noticed our absence? Today, nearly a half a century later, we are calling out to our friends, north and south, east and west. The Baltic states are standing on the threshold of Europe again. Europe grieves its long-lost sons. As for ourselves, we have never considered ourselves lost. Let us extend hands to one another and walk together along our common way. The Baltic Way is the way of Europe. The Baltic Way is the way of abolishing the last owned possessions in Europe. The Baltic Way is the way to our common home. Brothers and sisters in East and West, we are prepared to forget about your double standards. If you will find in yourselves courage to demand the application of principles of international law, not only in Africa and Asia, but also in Europe. Let us unite our voices and demand that the Hitler-Stalin pacts, together with their secret protocols, be declared null and void from the very moment of their signing. Let us declare the annexation of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania unlawful. We are ready. We are arriving. The oppressed nations of Europe, these are my words now, are ready for peaceful change. This is not our wish, but rather our demand, our rightful demand. We stand before the outpost of the last great empire on earth, over there. Rome fell. The sun no longer shines permanently on the British Empire. This too shall pass. The day will come when weeds grow and the wind whistles through the ruins of that building over there. As for the Estonians, the Latvians, and the Lithuanians, we ask but one thing, and a very simple thing it is too, merely that we be left alone, that we be given back our freedom. I would like to hear from you 3 times the Swedish word for freedom. Frihet. 6, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3. Frihet! 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 I would like to present to you now someone who speaks a civilized language, Mr. Laurit Karstic.
Och så några ord på svenska. Om ni får någon ordning på den här apparaturen. Idag för 50 år sedan kom 2 historiens största bödlar överens om att dela ett fritt Europa mellan sig. Den ena bödeln lyckades man stävja och återge dess ockuperade hälft sin frihet. Den andra bödeln håller sedan ett halvt sekel sitt rop. Den andra hälften sliter till i sitt grepp. Krafterna börjar nu sakta sina. Klorna börjar tappa sitt grepp. Och vissa folk börjar kunna vädra frihetens morgonbris. I denna stund bildas en kedja av människor som sträcker sig från Litauens södra till Estlands norra gräns.
Som avslutning på den här demonstrationen, om vi börjar med den estniska.
Sulniar, Masorex, I'd like to propose 1 minute of silence, and then we go our ways. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for your attention. One way or another, we're going to win.
Nüüd tulin kaadrist ära.
Men alla dessa filmer har den samma historia.
Mina panen igal juhul ilma. Teine varjus. Mõned aadressid, skaut käis Soomes. Ma ei tegele skautidega, skauti juht.
Ma vaatan meie laulukoorid siin naiskoorid ja nendel on ju õige trahvaline, see jääb endal kirju. Ja maakonnad
Tule võta mult intervjuu ka, ma räägin ka, tahad.
Tere!
Näete, siin me protesteerime.
Aga seal nad ei söö midagi.
Nemad seal sees arvavad, et Eesti, Läti, Leedu kuuluvad jagamisel nagu võileib. Ei lähe läbi. Me võidame niikuinii. Õnneks. See oli pikk intervjuu.
Parem plaani järgi.